Hello and welcome to Berlinale Meets Berlinale Shorts. My name is Anna Henckel-Donnersmarck. I'm the head and curator of Berlinale Shorts, and I have the great honor and pleasure to introduce the filmmakers of program number 3 to you. Hello and welcome. I will briefly tell the audience who is who, so maybe you wave when you hear your name. The first film in the program is Strange Object by Miranda Penell. Hi Miranda, she's in London. The next film is 100 Steps by Benjamin de Burca and Bárbara Wagner. Hi Bárbara,
Hello.
hi Benjamin. So Benjamin is in Berlin and Bárbara is all the way in Brazil. I believe, what's the time now at your place? In the morning, I believe.
It is morning here for us, yes.
Okay, and then we jump to a completely different time zone. We go to Beijing with the film Day is Done by Dalei Zhang.
Yes.
Hi Dalai, what's the time at your place now?
It's about 10 p.m.
Hi Ishu. Ishu is so nice to translate. You're welcome to come into the frame if you when you're translating. And on the other side of the frame is another person hiding. That's Yitian. Yitian, you want to say hello? The producer.
Hello. Hello.
And Edgar. He did the film Ventana, Edgar Jorge Baralt, and he is in Los Angeles. So we will see the sun rising through his window in the next hour. Edgar, hello. And
Hi.
And the last film in the program is called Les Attendants. It's by Minh Truong, and Qui is in Brussels. Hi, Qui.
H is for history. C is for civilization. This machine is an instrument of terror. A small alien army will follow in its wake. This is how it happens.
For a few years, I've been working specifically with British colonial archives, with images from British colonial history. So I'm interested in colonial ways of colonial legacies and colonial ways of image making and the persistence and the resonance of how they resonate now. I was looking specifically at this interwar, what we call the interwar period between the two world wars. I didn't realize there was so much bombing going on. So there are all these small wars which don't get called wars, they don't get recorded in British history. When I found the images, I was struck. They were very striking images, and I was struck by the strangeness of them, the otherworldliness of them. And then I did a little bit of research and I understood that this was a bombing campaign. This was a British imperial project, which took about 3 weeks to wipe out the entire resistance in British Somalia. I also thought about the whole problem of when we're talking about the past and when we're talking about history, that we get, that I find it useful to try and defamiliarize what we know about history. And I thought by using a futuristic language and imagery and sound to make the whole of history feel like a zone that might be happening in the future, that might be a helpful way to look at the past.
Me and Benjamin have been working together now for the last 7 to 8 years. And we didn't plan that, but it ended up being a methodology that we developed when me, being a journalist, Benjamin being an artist that studied art, we developed a practice in filmmaking that has a lot to do with encountering people we want to portray.
And our invite to the artist in the film was to bring it into this house, into these houses, which stood for a kind of empirical knowledge, that were houses that, you know, of course, became what they were because of the subjects, and the subjects that they are the people that are performing in these houses. So they're never represented in this house, but they perform in the house. It's a kind of a way of looking at how information or language or history telling can be requantified. We make our own requantifying gestures.
I would just add a little focus on the set, on these two houses, no, the aristocratic mansion in the south of Ireland, and then this bourgeois hotel particulier in the south of France, in the city of Marseille. What I liked about it is that these houses became museums. So the museum is there contemporarily. It is a museum. There's a tour guide, and then we bring in the Irish voices, the Northern African voices, as the visitors of this history today. There are very interesting things like bringing, for example, the Shanos dancers. There are brothers who perform this very traditional dance, Irish dance, on wooden boards. When they entered for the first time this museum, they were immediately super happy to be moving through these oak wood boards, which are Irish, no? And that has a very particular history in terms of how the British made use of this natural resource in the island. And they were in this kind of huge room that was a kitchen in the house, and they could dance their number there. So there's a lot of an intention of making that strange place into their homes, even though it is never going to be. But this is where we touch. This is where we would like to touch, even though we don't come to any form of how to say that. There's no statement there. It's not an occupation that brings in any form of violence, let's say. It's a form of negotiating also with that history.
还会继续，就还会继续若干部，现在就无法估计的。
Yes, Dalei wished to continue to make new films that of this his own cinematic world that will go on, but he cannot say how many films or which exact story would go on right now.
就这个很有意思的是，生活当中，他们在变化，时间给他们，然后在电影当中也希望看到他们的变化。比如说，小雷如果演员在成长的话，他不喜欢电影或者不喜欢摇滚乐，比如他想成为一个作家，想成为一个数学家，可能我的电影里面就会把他往这个方向去指引，很有意思。
So this is very interesting because in real life, the actors and the actress, they are experiencing their own life, and they are having changes, and also in the cinema, in the world in the film that Dalei imagines, the characters are also be changing when they like getting older or grown up. So, for example, if the actor playing the role of the grandchildren, Xiaolei, when he grow even older, when he finds out that he does not like cinema, he maybe likes trying to be a novelist, a writer. Dalei would try to make the character of the grandson to switch to go closer to that direction.
Let me introduce this two poster, and that one is "The Summer Is Gone." You see the original family and the younger characters, and now they grow up and the parents get older, so this is their time.
Okay.
More of a snapshot than a carefully captured picture. It seems like the result of an afterthought or a sudden urge. Unbalanced and overexposed, it's easy to imagine the photographer not giving it much thought for craft or precision. Who took this photo? One of my parents? I have no recollection of the moment it depicts. Maybe it was simply the last shot before the Christmas vacation roll would get developed. Yet I find myself getting lost in it, in other memories it brings up.
So the photograph is a photograph of the living room of the apartment where I grew up in Caracas, in Venezuela. And I'm sure it still exists, but I haven't been there in over 18 years. So I, in a way, for me, it exists as a memory only, right? And that kind of stained glass window, it's almost like very hard to find in just like residential housing where I live now and where I've lived since then. So it's almost like it takes on a different quality of what living situation can be. It's not a particularly fancy stained glass window, but it still adds a different relationship to your living space. So I wanted to sort of investigate that through the space in which I live now, which is a very sort of common apartment in Los Angeles, and sort of set those parallels, not so much as a way of being nostalgic, but also just as a way of like think about this passage of time and changes in environment and what kind of like openings can there be when you position these two in front of one another. So that's kind of what I was investigating as in the domestic space with my film. I chose to do the beginning narration in English because I wanted to add some distance to those memories. I wanted to, in a way, the language represents a distance in time, and a way to also just remove myself a little bit from the equation. Even though it's very sort of personal narration, it also can be a little bit more like dissecting a memory more than reliving it. And so when the narration switches to Spanish, I wanted that to feel like a shift in perspective. And one thing that I like kept referring to about this film while making it, I was calling it a soft time travel piece, because I wanted there to be some to think about memory in this way, in which you're literally how it manifests in time. And so when the narrations shifts to Spanish, there's also a shift in the timeline where it's no longer looking at the past from the present or from the future, but looking at the present from the past. So it seems like a future, especially as a way to sort of describe a lot of the ambivalence and uncertainty that we were living in the past summer.
What interesting about this film is that I made it when I just moved to France, yeah, like about more than 1 year ago, and I had the idea that I would like to do a film about a relationship between men that who don't know each other, but they encounter, they have short encounter based on sexual desire, and the kind of very, how to say, little sadness that live after such an encounter. So that's a kind of abstract idea at the beginning, but then when I came here and I discovered that here in the north of France and also the borders of Belgium, it used to be a strong coal mining industry. So they have a very typical landscape, which in English, I think it's called slab heap. That's it looks like a hill. And for me, the first time I came there, it's so strong that the nature, the coal is totally black, the soil, and the forest grow on that. So it's kind of something that if we don't know when we go there, we never think that this used to be such a violent place, that with the mining industry, and it used to be crowded, I guess, with a lot of men. And so that idea of a kind of homosexual encounter is settled down in that place. And so they are the story of the men, of the two men, but I don't want that they are young men, because for me there are a lot of film about that already. What I'm just in is the different interaction between the old people.
I thank all of you. It was a great pleasure to listen to all your thoughts and the background to your films. And I very much hope we can continue this conversation in the summer in Berlin. So let's all stay healthy, and then you come to Berlin in June and we share everything with the audience on the big screen. Thank you for sharing your time. And yeah,
Thank you.
Time to say goodbye.
Welcome to China.